Hello, today we're going to do a brief food and wine pairing, looking at 4 different wines by the glass at Bayberry Garden in Providence, Rhode Island. We're going to start from the top and work our way down with Cobal Ferment, Edanos Q14 coming from Greece, Cobal is coming from Slovenia, Cereal, which is made from Motaro, coming from Penende, Spain, and then we have our in-water Madeira coming from Broadbent. So starting up top, we are going to pair our Cobal Ferment, which is a high acid, very easy drinking wine made from ferment. So we're seeing it in a dry wine style instead of the traditional Hungarian style, which would include a bachatized version of a wine with a extreme amount of residual sugar, around 100 to 200 grams per liter residual. We're going to pair this extremely crisp, dry white wine with our, since it has such a crisp acidity and can cut through such nice fatty cuts of fish and meat, we're going to pair it with our Ora King salmon. And this dish as a whole is an extremely rich seafood forward dish with a rather fatty piece of salmon, around 3 to 4 ounces, and this extremely crisp wine with its high acidity is going to allow that fat to essentially be neutralized in the palate, and it's going to cut straight through that richness and leave a refreshing and super interesting mouthfeel. You have the contrast of the coating of your mouth that comes from the fat from the Ora King salmon, and an extremely refreshing and crisp cutting through of all of that richness with the Cobal, because it has such a really high acidity. We're going to move on to our Roditis Q15 from producer Edanos, coming from Peloponnese, Greece. And this is a wine that does have really intense acidity, but also more of a fuller body and a little bit more mouthfeel. Super low in the tannin department. It does spend 14 days on the contact with skin, so we're experiencing a little bit of a weightier body. And this I felt would pair really nice with our Rogue lettuce green salad. Now, I was in the rationale for this because of the acidity of both of these items. Sour cancels out acidity, or rather vice versa. So this rogue lettuce salad, with its nice crisp dressing, is going to sort of neutralize the acidity coming from this Edanos, allowing those fruit characters to come through a little bit forward. And lets the rogue salad speak for itself, and lets the fruit characters of the Edanos come through a little bit more. Moving on to our first and only red of the list, the Cereal, coming from Spain. This is a really nice, light and fruity wine, more on the natural side, low intervention. So once you open it, you do have to really get it poured all out within a matter of 48 hours before the profile starts to change and the fruit character starts to drop off a little bit. So because this wine has a little bit of weight to it, the tannin is in that medium to medium minus category. I decided to have this go with our macaroncini pasta. Bacon sofrito gives it that sort of sweet, salty, and not sweet, but salty, umami, fatty situation. And when you have umami and salt together, it cancels out the increasing of bitterness in a wine. So we're not going to have this wine become bitter if you're enjoying it with this high umami food. So we're going to say that goes with our macaroncini pasta. And the fat content in this as well, coming from the Pecorino Romano, also would help coat the palate a little bit and give this wine a little bit more oomph, given that there is not a whole lot of weight to this in comparison to a more fuller bodied red wine that you might see on our menu, in terms of maybe our Agrietico that might have a little bit more weight to it in comparison. This is going to fit in that sort of medium intensity category, same as the macaroncini, but because you're having that umami and salt play out together, it makes a really nice pairing. Going on to dessert, this rainwater Broadbent Madeira is in a medium dry style, so I figured that it would go really nice, especially with those nutty preserved and dried fruit notes, thinking cashews and almonds from this Madeira would pair really nicely with a chocolate-based dessert. So I'm thinking our chocolate marquis cake. Now, this is going to be an extremely rich dessert, and this Madeira does have some residual acidity as well as residual sugars left, so this is going to be more intensely sweet than the Broadbent, which is going to bring the sweetness of the Broadbent down, but because it's not a dry wine, it has some residual sugars left to it. It's already outside of that dry category, so if you brought it down a little bit, you wouldn't be going to extremely dry territory where it would be unpleasant or not as desirable of a sensation. You also have the acidity that is going to help cut through all this chocolate and richness. So that was a quick run through of what we would pair different wines by the glass with different menu items using the menu and wine by the glass list at Bayberry Garden. Cheers.